Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 316. Oh, I should have had some Stone Cold jokes ready.
Yeah, I had some ready. As soon as you said 316.
I should have had some Stone Cold jokes ready.
316 says, I just read your books.
Doesn't sound as badass as I just whipped your ass, but yeah.
No, but I mean, it's me saying it, so was it going to be badass ever? No.
That's fair. That's fair. I am Peter, joined as always by Matt.
Hey, what's up?
Connor is once again absent.
What?
Matt and Connor may be the same person though, because I've not seen them together in quite some time.
Hey, 2 weeks ago we were.
Right? Yeah.
Because I started not off during his Patreon reads.
Oh, it was back for 2 weeks. Sorry, I thought he was just back for last week. You're right. He was here 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. That's just my memory and my decrepit old age of 33 striking. So as a DC Comics podcast, we get together. We've talked about the DC books we read during the week. And coming up on this week's show, we have Detective Comics 1062, which is the start of a new run. We got Action Comics 1045, Robin issue 16, The Swamp Thing issue 15, Task Force Z issue 10, DC Mech issue 1. I read Batman One Dark Knight issue 3, and Matt read Superman Space Age issue 1. So
yeah. Well, you read Mech. I did not read Mech. So,
true. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So time is a real thing.
Yes,
so.
I will talk about Mech, but yeah. So a lot of books this week. I was hoping to get a Patreon book in this week, but I'll do them next week. It's fine. It was a bigger week for books. I would have liked to check out Superman, but it was an 80-page book, and I already had like a 50-page book on top of a reasonable size list.
And not this is not a slight at all, but it's every page of an 80-page. It's prestige. There's no ads. There's no, introduction that starts off, and it's 80 pages of content. So
yeah, the Black Label books are like that as well, I think, right? Like,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I read them digitally, so I don't even know what books have ads anymore. But yeah. So so that's what's coming on the show. There's one item in news as well. I'm sure there'll be some banter. Matt wasn't here last week, so I'm sure we'll faff about for a bit. But of course, we will get started because there's always time for a ComiXology top 10. You've missed that, Matt, haven't you? You missed it.
I didn't.
You didn't get it last week, and you're just like, salivating.
If I agreed, it'd be a lie, and I try not to lie.
Top 10. So good. So good. I'm Matt. I like barbecue and top 10s.
Half of that is true. Half of that is true. Barbecue rules.
I just picked a random food thing. It's not that you specifically said you like barbecue. I just assumed you did.
You could have said anything short of seafood, and I would have reacted the same.
But yeah, ComiXology top 10 for the week. This is what's right now ranking in the top 10 in ComiXology, which is obviously part of Amazon now. So any guess as to what number one is?
It's gonna be a Batman book or a Spider-Man book. Tell me I'm right or wrong.
You're right. It is one of those two things.
Okay, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's Detective Comics 1062.
It is not Detective Comics.
Damn, I went with the wrong one.
What you didn't realize is that Amazing Spider-Man issue 6 also happens to be technically issue 900, legacy-wise.
There it is. I see it now on the cover.
So,
and it's $10. So I should have looked at that too.
Yeah, so it's a big special milestone issue. Even though some of Marvel's numbering's a bit dodgy with some of these things. Yeah. But obviously that's why it's I mean Spider-Man usually does well anyway, but that's why it's specifically number one this week. Number 2 is Detective Comics 1062.
Yes. Ram V selling, Albuquerque helping with that.
Number 3 is surprising to me.
Oh yeah? Surprising in that it's a DC or a non-DC?
It is a DC book.
Is it Action Comics?
It's not Action Comics.
Damn.
It's surprising because it's Superman Space Age.
Hey, there we go, Mark Russell.
I did not see that coming. Yeah. It's doing well, apparently. The good news is that number 4 is Action Comics.
There we go.
And then number 5 is Robin. So DC have 4 out of the 5 of the top 5. That is very good.
And only one of them's a Bat book. So, if you count Robin. Yeah, I don't. At this point, I don't count. I mean, it's weird.
It's it's hard to say if you should count that or not. It's a Bat family, obviously, but is it a Batman book? Anyway, then you got Strange issue 4 at number 6. Is that a Doctor Strange? It is. It's Marvel. Yeah.
It is. I think he's dead, and now this is his wife from another dimension as the Sorceress Supreme.
God, comic books are stupid sometimes.
Just like numbers.
Ant-Man issue 1. This is a 4-issue mini, number 7 here.
I almost picked this up just based off of the cover, and then
it's Al Ewing, which, you know,
yeah,
Immortal Hulk's fantastic, so I wouldn't have been as opposed to trying it.
But it feels like that, you know, 60s era Avengers, and yeah, but I put it back.
Yeah, only 4 issues, but it does have that 60 years logo on it, same as Spider-Man. So there's a lot of 60th anniversary Marvel stuff. I think so. This miniseries is likely part of that line and just doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's Al Ewing, Tom Riley, and it is a flashback to Hank Pym, so that's why it's got that, you know.
Cool
vibe. Yeah.
I have to get Marvel Unlimited again at some point. I've not touched the Marvel book in quite some time.
Me too.
The Variants issue 2 is number 8. It's a Gil Simone Marvel book with Jessica Jones. Very cool, I guess. Number 9 is Gambit issue 1 of 5.
Pete, how many issues of those did you get?
Oh, I got all the variants of this one. Yeah. Can't get enough of Gambit.
Oh my god, it's Chris Claremont writing. So it's like legit Gambit. Like, I think he's the one that created him. So
I mean, he probably created a lot of X-Men that, you know, obviously not the original 6 or whatever, but like a lot of the ones that get introduced in the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
And then number 10 is Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi issue 3. And I almost vomited a little in my mouth as I said that, but
no, that cover's great too. Yeah. Right before Order 66. Got Cody there. Obi-Wan looking distinguished.
So DC took 4 of the top 5, and also 4 of the top 10 in total because they had nothing in the back half. But DC did come out number 11, 12, and 13 with Task Force Z, Batman Fortress, and One Dark Knight all, you know, back to back there. So that's neat. Worth mentioning, the Supergirl Wound of Tomorrow collection digitally is number 20 on the chart right now, which is pretty good given it's mixed in with single issues. It's actually higher than the new issue of Swamp Thing, sadly, which I wish was doing better. But
yeah, well, it's towards the end too. People might be waiting, you know, for it. Real quick about Gambit. If you had to guess what year he debuted, what would you guess?
Oh, I'd guess like 81.
1990.
Oh, it's a bit later. Okay.
Yeah, really. And if you had to guess the created by, it's Claremont as the writer, but do you know the artist who gets credit? Think 90s X-Men.
Jim Lee.
It is Jim Lee, the publisher of DC Comics. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was before he became a...
Yeah. Well, it's before Image, it's before Wildcats, Wildstorm, all that stuff. But I had no idea. I thought Gambit just feels like a 70s, you know, all new X-Men vibe, you know? Not 90. Man, so he was only around a couple years before the cartoon dropped. And he was a pretty big part of that cartoon.
Yeah, and shout out to Turtles. The IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, issue 131 came out this week. That's still going strong. I'm pleased that just keeps going. One day I will go and read from where I left off. I read like the first 50-something issues, and it was great.
Is that the one where there was a death of one of the brothers?
Oh, that didn't happen. That happens like issue 100, I think. But yeah, eventually that happens.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's that same series.
Yeah. Although I think I'm sure they came back. I've got a sneaking suspicion they came back. But there's a 5th turtle now. The girl turtle they introduced at some point.
Is it Venus?
I assume so.
Like from the TV show.
I assume it is, but yeah. I've not read anything past like issue 58 or whatever I got to.
Well, there's always been a fluctuating number of turtles, considering, you know, Slash, if you're counting him, right? So there's always a 5th turtle. Yeah, the lady one. So
I would say there's always a 5th. I'd say by and large they're usually just 4.
Well, I know that, but Slash always kind of hanging around too, and depending on him, he kind of jumps back and forth. If he's a good guy or a bad guy. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read Turtles.
Yeah.
I have a friend that anytime something happens with Turtles, it's the greatest thing that ever happens. So I try to put it out. It's Turtles and Ghostbusters. Yeah. And I can't.
I mean, Turtles is better than Star Wars, so you know.
I won't go that far. I like them both.
Yeah, so we do have one bit of news this week to talk about, and that is that in November, which we've not had solicits for yet, I don't think. I think we just got like October last week. They're doing a 80-page one-shot anthology book celebrating the death of Superman. That's a weird way of phrasing that. You know what I mean? It's the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman in November, and they're getting...
almost said something really bad, and I don't want to bring that hive upon us, so I'll keep it to myself.
Probably wise.
Yes.
But they're bringing back basically all the original creatives who were working on the Superman books at the time. So Dan Jurgens, Brett Breeding, Roger Stern, Butch Goose, Louise Simonson, John Bogdanov, and Jerry Ordway and Tom Grummett are all going to be here for the stories that are in this anthology. So
that's pretty cool.
Effectively, this is like one of those like anniversary issues, but it's themed about it's the anniversary of a specific story that they're celebrating rather than anything else. So now there's actually a little synopsis for each of the stories here, but I'll just tell you. So the life of Superman is Jurgens doing writing and art, with Breeding also in art, and then you've got Standing Guard, which is by Stern, with Butch on art, and then you got Time by Simonson, writing with Bogdanov on art, and then Above and Beyond by Ordway and Grummett. So 4 stories, 8-page book, and basically all the stories are going to be just sort of about the impact of the death of Superman and how it still felt in some ways. One of the stories has John in it, so it's kind of going to be him looking back on the death of his father.
Cool.
Stuff like that.
Jurgens probably handling that one, considering Jurgens is kind of introduced John.
Yeah, young John Kent learns in school that his father died years earlier in a battle with Doomsday.
I shouldn't be laughing at that, but just the concept.
Wait, Dad, you died?
Yeah.
Technically, I got better though.
How are you here right now? I wasn't really dead. I was in a Kryptonian coma state and absorbed enough solar radiation. I came back with a mullet.
Yeah. Standing Guard, the Stern one, is the Doomsday battle from the perspective of the Guardians.
That should be cool.
Yeah. And then similar Time is like Steele's perspective of the event. Above and Beyond is Manpa Kent watching their son fight Doomsday on TV. Oh, that one may be quite emotional.
Yeah. Is there a Lois story? She was right there.
Doesn't seem to. Yeah, but that's the point, though, is that she's in the main story. So.
No, I know that, but just her perspective and her, I don't know.
I really, this is more focused on characters who didn't get as much focus at the time.
I mean, but that's true. Because Steele came after. That was Reign and Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that makes sense to me. It sounds like a fun idea for a one-shot. Hopefully the stories are good. This is definitely one that I feel like I'm more inclined to make time for versus some of the other ones, because it does feel a bit more focused.
Not that the other ones don't matter, but those largely feel like just one-off stories that might get collected in a special one day, right? This feels like like you said, it's weird to say, a celebration of the death of Superman, where it's actually adding to the event.
Yeah, in a weird way, yeah. So I'm not opposed to this special.
Like we get to the point when it starts to get to like the 40th of Crisis, and they do one like that. It would feel similar.
They probably will. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I know. I was doing the math. It's coming up.
It's only a few years. Yeah, it's
coming up.
2025 will be the 40th anniversary. So. It wouldn't surprise me if they do something like that. But yeah, it's just that sort of time period, where thankfully all these creators are still around and able to make content.
Yeah.
But you have to imagine that once you get to 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary, that's going to be less likely. The further you go, so maybe this is the time to strike and do something with all those people again. Well, you still can. Cool. There you go. That's the news. And what's bizarre is that Comic-Con happened last weekend, and like very little came out of it that was worth talking about. Like the DC or the Warner Brothers panel, from all reports, seems to have been hastily thrown together just to have one, and
shocked. I'm shocked to tell you.
And obviously, didn't talk about Flash because they were not bringing up Ezra Miller.
Again, shocked,
right?
Shocked. I tell you.
So you had Black Adam, you had a bit of Shazam 2, I think, and maybe some Aquaman. I don't know. Like, I don't know how much they had of any of that stuff.
That said, I'm very excited for Shazam 2. I'm not over the moon like I was for the first Shazam. Like, I'm sure it'll be good, but it seems like Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods is a movie I do want to see. It's not one where I feel like I'm gonna have to see it, like Black Adam. I feel, as much as I like Dwayne, the more I see of that movie, the more I'm feeling obligated as a DC fan to go see it. But Shazam felt that trailer that came out, it seems very much the same vibes as the first, so which I enjoyed. So, but yeah, lots of salty people because apparently Cavill was spotted in San Diego, which is probably not true, and so it whipped up
the rumors. Yeah.
That and to that person that looks like Henry Cavill, congratulations, you're a handsome man. But maybe stay out of San Diego around Comic-Con.
It's so funny. I saw a tweet screen capping articles from Screen Rant, and the first one was rumors point to Henry Cavill appearing at the Warner Brothers panel at Comic-Con to announce a Superman project. And then the next one was Henry Cavill did not appear at Comic-Con. Yeah. And then the third one was fans disappointed because Henry Cavill did not appear. And I'm like, whose fault is that, Screen Rant? Whose fault is that?
Definitely. But yeah, no, that trailer that came out, I'm trying to think what else did I watch from DC? I think that was just it. I tracked down all the Marvel stuff, being that tends to be more newsworthy. They dropped a lot of information, a lot that I'm just looking at going, oh my god, we're still doing this. Did you see Nope?
It's not out here yet.
Oh, I didn't. Damn it.
It's not out here for another couple of weeks.
No one I've known has seen it that I can talk to about it, because every time I'm around someone that's seen it, there's people around us that haven't seen it. And I don't want to spoil things.
Yeah, it's not out here till it's 10th to the 12th of August. It's not a few weeks.
Well, dodge those spoilers because people don't know how, But damn, need to talk about it.
I'm looking forward to it. We're going to do it in the Atomic Cinema Experiment, or Sci-Fi Movie Podcast. If you didn't know that existed, go check it out on Mail Fuzz Movies or your local podcast feed.
I started watching The Boys again. I had to rewatch episode 5 of season 2 because I forgot everything that was going on, which led me right back into the thing that made me stop watching. But I'm gonna power through.
What's the thing?
When Stormfront and Homelander.
That plot's great.
No. The plot's fine. Just thinking about the ramifications and what that says about the world was a bummer because I watched it back when it first came out when things weren't so good. But yeah, I'm continuing on. So, what else did I watch real quick? Going to my movie list. Just The Gray Man, which is fun. Did you see There's Someone Inside Your House, Pete?
No.
It's a Netflix slasher movie.
No.
It's interesting. Definitely feels like a Netflix movie, but it's from the director of Creep, the Duplass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is a good movie, so.
Yeah. The story on this one kind of, the more you think about it, the more it starts to fall apart, but some of the slashing set pieces are really, really well done. So, yeah, we watched that. It's pretty good.
In terms of potentially more interesting comic book media, Paper Girls just launched on Amazon yesterday, the time of recording.
Yeah.
Watched the first episode. It feels a bit cheap, compared to some other things, but
yeah.
the girls' chemistry and like the overall like sort of vibe and the kind of feel of it is pretty good in episode 1 so far. So I mean, I can't really vouch for the whole thing or anything, but I would say give it a try if you've got access.
Who's showrunning in that? Is it anyone of note?
I don't know. I haven't.
I don't know.
If it is someone of note, I've forgotten who it is. But
look, because I remember I read the first 3 or 4 issues back when they came out,
Mm.
And it was really good stuff. Shocking, right? When I came on and
yeah, and the first episode relatively faithful. From what I mean, it's been a while, but from what I remember for those first few issues,
yeah,
the first episode is pretty faithful to stuff.
Yeah, it was weird because it was very. I remember watching Stranger Things after reading Paper Girls, and it was getting the same tone from that. So I might have to check this out when I get caught up from. Because there's just one episode that dropped, or was it multiple?
Multiple, so all 8 episodes of the season.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought Amazon was on a weekly.
They've been kind of going back and forth. Yeah, they've not really like settled on doing it for everything yet, but they've been doing weekly for some shows. They've been binge for some others. I prefer weekly, so I would more than happily have them go full weekly. It forces writers for a start to not just treat it as they'll just binge watch. We don't have to like worry about structuring the episodes properly to have hooks or anything like that. So
that's good. Yeah, there's 8, and I can't find it. Is it Stephanie Folsom? Oh, okay. Screenwriter of Toy Story 4 and Thor Ragnarok, I think. And yeah, showrunner. There's also working on the Lord of the Rings show, which people are excited for. People not being me. So
definitely not being me either.
Nope. Yeah, maybe we'll check out Paper Girls. Well, that's all there. As I'm having a hangover from Stranger Things. I really enjoyed that season, and I feel empty. I need something.
Oh yeah, season was so good.
Tone.
I've got the final episodes of Better Call Saul right now, so my good TV quota is happily being fulfilled.
How many episodes are left?
There is 3 episodes left.
Okay, well then I am 3 episodes away from of doing the final 2 seasons.
You might as well start now. Like, by the time you're caught up, those last 3 will be done.
No, I know, but I'm also doing the boys one thing at a time.
Oh, okay.
With all the wrestling I watch right now, between Ring of Honor and AEW, it's a tight weave.
Yeah, I've also been working through season 1 of Yellow Jackets, which is
I saw your review pop up. So, which they put the first episode up on Paramount, and then they wanted me to subscribe to watch the rest. I said, no, sir. I'm not gonna watch your 1 episode. So then I have to subscribe. What's that on Showtime?
Showtime, yeah.
So I'm not here for your dirty tricks. I'm sure it's good though. I've heard nothing but good things.
I mean, you said dirty. Giving you the first episode for free so that you might know if you want to see the rest of the show.
Yeah. You know who does that, Pete? Drug dealers.
That's not dirty. That's like. That's like, you don't have to pay just to try the first episode. We'll give you the first one for free, and then you like it, so you don't feel bad about paying for a month of the service. That's not dirty.
I don't know, man. Again, drug dealers give you the first hit free, and then they got you hooked. And
I don't think the same logic necessarily applies to media.
I think it does.
No, it really doesn't.
It does. Oh boy.
Some really wonky logic going on here, but yeah, sure. All right.
Me, wonky logic? No.
Yes, never. You, wonky logic. All right, let's talk about comics, shall we? Let's just get into things. Detective Comics 1062, Ram V writing, Rafael Albuquerque on the art. So this is the start of the new run on Detective.
Yep.
We got a lot of new concepts kind of introduced here, some new characters. Well, as far as I know, they're new characters. I don't recognize any of these new people. We've got a new tone, we've got new sort of plot threads being established and things like that. And obviously Ram V is someone we've liked on other books recently, so super excited to see how it would shape up. So yeah, I mean, first things first, Albuquerque's art is exceptional. Yeah. I mean, there's really...
Ram V's one of these writers that gets all the great artists, right? And it's Tom King, Ram V, Tom Taylor.
Yeah, so... I mean, the whole thing opens in like an opera or theater production and there's this giant bat and there's an empty chair that's reserved for Bruce Wayne, but he's not there, of course.
I'll be honest, I got a little worried when they started talking about pearls. Got a little, and then I was like, oh, it's the opera. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the opera.
And then the bat creature comes up behind her. Like, okay, I know what's going on here.
Well, yeah, I mean, later on, Batman has a dream about this bat creature, and like the word Barbatos is thrown around again. We've not heard that in a little bit.
No.
So,
but I trust. See, and this is one of those things that if it was another writer, I would get a little bit like, we're running this back. But Ram V's built a trust that when you come up with these larger concepts that have an overarching theme, I trust him to stick the landing. You know, so I saw Barbatos, and at first I was like, that was another thing. It's like seeing the Pearl, going like, I thought we were done with Barbatos, but I think if he starts to tie this into the legacy of Batman and what all this means in an operatic sense.
I love how you say it. You say it as if you're talking about someone named Barbara Toes.
No, Barbatos.
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 I'm going to say it wrong now because you're trying to correct me.
I don't know if I'm right. That's just how I'm reading that. I don't know if that's technically right. But anyway, so yeah, Batman, we cut to him dealing with some thugs who are robbing or smuggling some items. And he ends up fighting with someone who looks like Bruno Maroney, but turns out to actually be some kind of shape-shifting monster.
Like a golem type, like...
Yeah, he's oozing green from his mouth. He's got red eyes. The whole thing.
Kind of like... Not like a zombie, but kind of zombie features, right? Like...
So he's actually in a bit of trouble, and then there's a bolt goes through the thing's head, and it's Talia from a distance, and Batman chases after her, says, "You don't kill things in my city," and she's like, "I thought it was only humans, and that thing is not human." And then the monster pops up again. He's not dead. Like that didn't kill him. So yeah, but she's like, "No, I'm here to warn you, Bruce. They're coming, and you're not prepared." So it's like setting up the whatever the threat's going to be.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, one of the things here, though, is that Bruce is feeling a little bit sluggish, and he's concerned that maybe there's something wrong with him because he's not operating at full capacity. So he starts doing a lot of tests in his lab to sort of just give himself a physical, see how he is. And he calls Dick, and he's asking him about the various things. But Dick's like, "Hey, why are you doing all these tests? Is something wrong?" He's like, "Yeah, I was 3 seconds off tonight. Something's not quite right. I'm just making sure I'm plugging any holes that need to be filled." And Dick's just like, "Are you sure you're not just starting to get a little old, Bruce? Like, maybe that's all this is?"
And Bruce took that personally.
He did, yes. Yeah. So he starts talking about the artifacts that these guys were smuggling, and one of them is this cube. And immediately I was getting like Hellraiser vibes, and then Bruce looked at it and started saying, "Oh, there's like a mechanism inside." I'm like, "It's the goddamn lament configuration, Bruce. Do not touch it."
So I've never seen these, but I thought the same thing. I know the puzzle box, right? Like, I was like, "Oh no, Ram V, what are you doing?" And there's a bat creature, and you're not ready for them. I was like, "Oh no, we are getting Cenobite stuff here."
Cenobites, Matt.
Cenobites.
Cenobites.
I haven't seen the movie. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm going to pronounce it how I pronounce it.
You're pronouncing it like xenomorph. You're saying Cenobites. No, yeah. Cenobites.
How do you spell it? It's Cenobi, right?
I think so. I mean, it's not a word I write down very often, but yeah, something like that. Cenobites.
I find that hard to believe, Pete. I'm sure you don't have a puzzle box there.
Nah, Tim's got one. Tim's whipped his out on a few episodes of Screams.
To clarify, the puzzle box. You can't just bring that up and say Tim whipped it out.
Yeah, I just did, and I can.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, no. I like seeing Dick Grayson pop up. Like it's great to see Nightwing. Like I love when Detective has it's not just Bruce, right? Like it feels like there's not just a larger cast, but it ties Bruce to people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because even when it was Talia and you just see the arrow go through, I was thinking it was Huntress because she's had a pretty big part in tech, during Tamaki's run. So I was thinking, maybe it's her, and the fact that it was a Maroni, but it being Talia was a nice surprise too.
Yeah, Ram V strikes me as a writer who appreciates the family and like the the wider set of characters. Bruce can't figure out where these artifacts came from. Like they seem old and valuable, but he can't quite. They're not from Egypt. They're not from anywhere else that one might assume an artifact would be from. And then we cut to these new characters. in the Orgum Palace in Zvastral, and we're introduced to this character, Arzin, along with his mother, and his mother's sending him to Gotham, and his brother is already in Gotham preparing for their arrival. But he's bringing his two cronies, which is this guy with a big classical kind of beard and this woman.
Yeah.
So obviously they feel very villainous, and this is clearly setting up who these new villains are going to be. And then we see Mr. Gale, who's the brother, and he like wipes out this set of gangsters who were the ones having their men like import these artifacts for them, and because they failed and because Batman took them, Gale and his men kill all of them, and some of them they've got like, cloaks on and they've got knives, so they look kind of like, I think, Ghostface without the Ghostface mask. You know, like
yeah,
druids.
Very cultish.
Yeah. So we're getting kind of like a cult horror type of villain coming after Gotham, and they want to save Gotham from itself, which is, I mean, that part of it's not very original. Like lots of villains.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that Talia knows, like, she's kind of familiar with this group, and she was trying to warn Bruce without stopping them. I think that's key too, right? Because that's very trying to save Gotham from itself is very Ra's al Ghul.
So. Yeah, I don't think it's completely original, but I do think that they have some interesting vibes and looks so far. So I'm curious to see, where the story goes with them. And then we get Bruce having his nightmare where Barbatos' arm comes out of his chest, and then it holds him. It's this gorgeous like red page of Barbatos holding Bruce, all kind of vulnerable, and talking about Barbatos, being in the dark and listen to the bell that tolls my name, blah blah blah. Spooky shit.
Who would have thought that Albuquerque is so good at drawing bat creatures?
Oh yeah, shocked. Could have predicted that a million years. And then he wakes up to the sound of music, and not the movie, the sound of music, just the literal sound of music.
He's trying to figure out that Maria problem.
Yeah, and it turns out the box is a music box, and there's like music playing out of it, and that's the cliffhanger for the main story. And all I'm thinking is like, at some point, Pinhead's going to pop out. The box, you opened it. We came. Yeah. So, I do not expect this will be the last time I make some Hellraiser jokes in relation to this plot. As long as this box keeps popping up.
Yeah, there's also with the cultists and kind of that whole thing. There's also some Lovecraft vibe going on, and I don't know if that's just because I just watched Mouth of Madness a couple weeks ago, and just this whole idea of Bruce not feeling 100%, right? Like he's feeling a bit off. It just feels like not necessarily a madness, right? But just like he's not himself. And he's key to that. But yeah, I wouldn't pass it Ram V of doing something along those lines with some cosmic-y horror, because like what is Barbatos? Barbatos. I'm gonna try to stress the bat in his name. Being a giant bat monster. But a cosmic horror concept, right?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of the opera and stuff, like that was something Connor was salivating over. It's not something that necessarily appeals to me at face value, but I will say that this first issue has a lot of good like atmosphere and a lot of good sort of vibes, like being in the city at night, these types of locations, these types of characters with the murders and like the cultists. Like there's definitely some nice vibes to this that I kind of appreciate, and I wasn't really doubting that because Ram V's been really scratched that itch typically in most of his books that he's done so far for me. So
yeah, I've yet to read a book where with Ram V I was like, nope, I didn't connect to this. Like even if it's something like with the opera, I don't understand opera whatsoever, right? But the fact that it's Ram V doing a Gotham opera, as it was kind of put in the solicits, that's something I'm curious about. And then just here with him with Bruce at the start not feeling right, just from there, it's off and running. But yeah.
And then the backup's a Gordon story. This is kind of like he's back in Gotham and he's struggling with being useless because he's kind of retired now. He doesn't really, he wants to be active, and lo and behold, this corrupt cop shows up with a prostitute. And is basically throws her at him, and it turns out that the reason why he's done this is because this was a cop that Gordon tried to put away a long time ago for his corruption, and this prostitute, her sons went missing, and she tried to go to the police for help, and because she kept showing up, they're just sort of shooing her off to Gordon. So, he can help her, kind of thing. He's a do-gooder. We don't care. And it's this idea that it gives Gordon some purpose again, so he has something to like care about and like be Gordon, go and help people. So sure enough, he starts investigating, and it leads him to Arkham, where a lot of junkies and homeless people are using now because it's been left abandoned ever since.
Yeah, the remnants of it. Also, did you talk about in the main story that the people that are coming for Gotham are also they're claiming the Arkham name?
Oh, I didn't mention that. No, you're right.
Yeah, so that's how I figure this is tying in. Is they're coming back to put the to restore the name of Arkham in Gotham and to save Gotham from itself. So the fact that Gordon ends up in this, the remnants of Arkham Asylum, which has become, a haven for junkies and lost souls.
Yeah.
They have to be tied together, at least I think.
Yeah. Eduardo Arkham is the name that's on the scroll they've got when they're talking. Yeah. In the main story.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sort of thing where this was a new backup, so I was like, oh, am I going to read this? And I was like, oh, it's a Gordon story, let me read it. So this is Simon Spurrier and Danny on art for this story. And the end of the story is that when Gordon ends up finding a bunch of dead bodies, he follows the tracks of whoever might have done it, and it seems that he finds this woman's son, but the woman's son is naked and might be the one who killed them all. So it's kind of like, it's like, oh, like, we're in, to use you just mentioned Mouth of Madness. It feels like he's in the Mouth of Madness. For lack of a better term. So, because he's eating a rat, so he's a bit unhinged. He's got like a big tattoo on his back.
To be fair, he did go to Arkham. That's where people like that end up. So, he didn't
run. He didn't go there as a patient, though. He went there after it was already abandoned.
But he still knew to go there. My big problem with this story was I do like the art. Danny's art, it sticks out. It's their art when he's the dialogue was so weird for Gordon, because I know Gordon's a retired detective, but this felt like pulpy kind of wannabe Sam Spade, and that's not Gordon to me, right? Like, he's not that person that when he thinks like a hard-boiled detective. So, but I know that's what Cy Spurrier was going for. I just don't think it landed.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I guess I just accepted it as like, oh, this is kind of what he's becoming now that he's not on the force anymore, and he's alone. I mean, there's like a little montage at one point where he talks to like Babs and like Montoya for a job, and they basically Montoya's like, oh, they want a clean slate, none of the old force, and Barbara's like, just enjoy retirement, go and play golf or something.
And who recommends he go and work for the mob? It's
the bartender that
that's right.
Yeah,
I could set you up, and I was like, that's one thing Gordon will never do. He's the clean cop, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, no. Enjoyable issue, detective. What are you giving the book?
Yeah. So, are we breaking them up the stories, or just as a whole?
I can break them up. All
right. So the main story I'm going to give an 8.5. The backup I'm going to give a 7, and so I'll give the whole thing an 8.
Yeah. I think the main story for me, I'll just go straight 8. I think the big monster that he fights in that big fight scene is fine and it's fun, but it's a little bit generic. It's not. Yeah. It doesn't quite have the tone and the atmosphere that some of the other scenes in the book do. So I think it maybe drags it down a little bit into just sort of more normal territory. And then the backup, I'll probably go 7.5. I think the art especially gives it this kind of Danny's art's got this good sort of like obscure but grimy vibe to Gotham that I kind of dig. So
yeah, it felt in line with that Arkham book that we were reading, Dan Waters one. So yeah, it felt like they were in the same neck of the woods, which was nice.
Yeah, so good stuff. But yeah, it's Detective Comics 1062. Action Comics 1045, Philip K. Johnson writing with Brent Peeples and Will Conrad on the art. So we have two artists, and there is kind of an awkward transition between them whenever it does swap, because they are very different. Obviously, it not being Federici is a bit of a shame. That's what you were always hoping for. So this issue, the plot in this fight between Mongol and Superman and everyone else is really underway, and very early on it sets up that Mongol's got, Omak. It's got a corrupted version of Light Ray and Apollo.
And
That's the
Apollo,
one.
yeah.
So
The unmade versions of them. Yeah, so
they're all fighting on behalf of Mongol and wiping the floor with a bunch of the war zones, and it's just creating a lot of turmoil. And this issue, I think, really kind of sums up into the formation of 3 different plots that they're kind of like, because they're debating what they should do next, and they agree that they should split up and do all of them. So one of them is that they're going to, it's Natasha, along with Orphan, are going to repurpose one of the Red Sun like sort of engines that are on the war world. Based on, and this is actually like this is more elaborated on the backup, but we get more backstory for it.
I love that.
Yeah,
I did love that. So.
But it's basically they can convert it to effectively a yellow sun. They don't say yellow sun, but that's what it sounds like.
So what they realize is that the Genesis energy, the radiation, will make the Philosians and Superman. It messes with them. So what they can do is they can reverse the engine and then focus that Genesis energy, and it's like a yellow sun. And it can give them basically all the strength without any of the radiation. And then once they can do that, they'll have Superman and an army of other Supermen.
Yeah, the Philosians all have powers potentially as well.
And,
yeah.
Hopefully they'll be able to, stand guard against Mongol.
So,
because and again, it's not about defeating Mongol, right? It's about making a statement.
Yeah. So you got Midnighter, Manchester Black, and some of the others are going to go and try and like revert the other teammates who have been turned and corrupted and unmade, and try and figure out a way to bring them back. So that's their mission. And then Superman's going to go with Karlux, the Philosian dude, to go and try and deal with the Ulgron like myth that's in the necropolis, right?
The fire of Ulgron.
Yeah. So they're going to go and try and deal with that, because that's what Mongol's looking for. Mongol wants that because it'll basically turn him into a god, and they can't let that happen. So Superman agrees to go and try and find it, not because he really wants it for himself, but just to keep it away from Mongol more than anything. So that sets up these sort of 3 key goals. So this is like proper, like it does kind of feel like we're building up to the end game of this now, and it's like everything's going down. And when we see some of this stuff play out, some of the visuals, like the art is unfortunately quite stilty because it's swapping back and forth, and one of the artists in particular, and probably Conrad's a bit too clean and feels a lot more house style compared to anything that Federici does. Not that Peeples feels like Federici either, but he does feel a bit more distinct though. At least
there's a painted quality like Federici has that Peeples has too, and then so when you put that with the Will Conrad, which is still decent art, but just against those they don't mesh.
It's very different. It feels very different. There's some nice scenes though, because a couple of the Philosian kids like come with Superman and Karlux, because there's really nowhere safe to go, so at least they'll feel better if they're with Superman. And there's this little sweet moment where they ask if they can go back to Earth with Superman, and he's like, well, would you want that, or would you want to go back with him to like New Philosia and grow up there? And he kind of says, like, one day you'll wear your own family emblem, but, you can wear mine for as long as you want to. It's just
That was another Philip Kennedy Johnson, just understanding Superman at a core level.
Oh, sure.
Because that line really moved me. Him going, until you have your own, and he calls them by their full names. You can wear my symbol until you come up, with your own family. And I was just like, oh, man, there's Superman just being inspirational again. Not even trying. But
yeah. Obviously, when Natasha and Orphan go to the Red Sun engine, one of Mongol's cronies shows up and tries to stop them. Yeah. So
the teacher shows up, darling.
It's setting up these plot threads that they're going to pick up next issue. Superman and Co. find the door to the Fire of Ulgron, and it turns out to be Byla that's in there. And yeah, like. This idea that like he's protecting this thing to until someone who is worthy of it, someone who'll restore what Ulgron is rather than just use it for corrupt reasons. And Superman says, I have no interest in doing anything with it. I'm just here to like finish what I started, which is to help the people who are here.
Mhm.
Which of course sounds like, oh, that
Right.
will restore the name of Allred and all that stuff. So he probably is perfect to wield it. So it's a nice little speech moment from Superman. I will say this though, like well, this is the sort of thing where Byla, like I really had to think about who this was because
I was gonna say, Pete, do you remember who this was? Because I remember the name, but I could not for the life of me remember them popping up.
So I think this is from earlier in the run.
Yeah.
Is this the guy who was telling like stories early on?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first, he took the form of a Philosian slave and storyteller. So that was from the Action Comics annual from last year.
Cool. So it's a neat callback. I do kind of wonder if like a little editor's box just to remind us who that was, mate.
Yeah, because I was like,
not when
I know this face and I know the name, but for whatever reason, so I had to look it up, and yeah, it was. But I do like the fact that the whole storyteller is an emissary of the old god, right? And that it's looking for, he's there to stand guard so this power doesn't get misused, right?
Yeah.
Or it gets used properly. And what does that mean? But yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact wording he uses is, my task was to repel all those who would follow in Olgren's path and to aid the one who would redeem him. So yeah, like the idea Superman will be the one who does that probably.
Right.
So the cliffhangers is basically like, okay, right, you're going to have to prove yourself worthy, and it's like here's a giant monster to fight, basically.
Yeah.
That's the end of the issue. This is kind of a frustrating issue in a way because I like all the various plot things going on and everything that's kind of ramping up to get to the ending. But I think Byla not being instantly recognizable to me, mixed with the fact that the art's jumping back and forth, did make it a bit of a more mixed bag than it should have been.
Yeah.
As far as the main story goes, anyway. So, but yeah, so next time the Trials of Allred, and we'll see Superman proving himself worthy of the power of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing that pops up too, is that they mentioned that if Superman beats Mongol, he becomes a Mongol, right? Because that's how that system works. So it's this tricky thing that they can't necessarily beat Mongol that way. They have to just completely not make a fool of him. What's the word I'm looking for? They have to make it look like he can't lead, but that they have to. It's a trick to where they have to want to lead themselves, which is like again, you look at Philip Kennedy Johnson and the kind of story he's trying to tell about freedom and and corrupt societies and whatnot. But I really did like that.
Yeah. The backup though is Steel with Lois. This is their communication with Natasha, and this is obviously set a little bit before the conversation earlier in the issue, where they came up with this plan and how to convert the suns using the Genesis energy. They find that it's actually saving the Philosian they've got in the tank. It's actually healing her more than the sun ever would. So that's all fine and well, but then something breaks their communications, and then the villain that was set up last issue, Conduit, shows up on behalf of one Amanda Waller because they should not have the Genesis fragment. So he steals that. There's a bit of a fight. I did like the moment where like Conduit calls like Superman's family like a family of freaks, like that husband and that horrible son of yours, and she just grabs like one of Steel's biggest guns and just like fires at him.
Yeah, she goes, "This one have a good kick." Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but he does get away. So the end of the story here is that, well, we can't really take him on one by one because he is quite strong. So she calls on John, Kara, Connor, and Keenan to come help. So we're getting all the super family coming in.
That was this might be tip of my hand, but this moment made me so happy. When Conduit brought up the family of freaks and whatnot, and then Lois sends out the help, and we get John and we get Connor and Kara, but Keenan we haven't seen in a while, right? Like, so the fact that we get Keenan too, it felt like a really great moment. Because we talk about the Bat family a lot, but the Super family is pretty deep too. So the fact that Lois can call and Steel, for that matter, can call on these people, and they're gonna help get this Genesis fragment back is real fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Connor with his stupid sunglasses and haircut.
I hate that look so much. And I know you're not a fan of the jeans and the t-shirt, but I take the jeans and the t-shirt to the stupid high fade sunglasses and leather jacket. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Just not a fan.
That cracks me up a little bit. The art in the backup is it's a little it's fine. Like it's not bad art by any means.
No, I liked it. The composition I think is really good. I had one kind of problem is there's a scene where you can see Steel's reflection in Conduit's helmet, but it makes it look like Steel's saying Conduit sign and Conduit saying Steel's, and that was really only my problem with that.
Oh sure, yeah, I can see that.
Because I get what they're going for in the shot. Like it's a cool looking shot. Just maybe the letterer didn't have a good spot to try to fix that. But
yeah, because basically Conduit's offended that they refer to the alien as a woman. He's like, no, it's an it, and goes all bigoted about it. It's just a little bit flat. I don't know if it might actually be more the colouring and than it is the actual line work. That I'm not as hot on. But so like I say, the issue overall is a bit of a mixed bag in art, unfortunately. So hey, what are you giving Action Comics 1045?
I'm giving the main story an 8 and the backup an 8.5. So we'll put that about an 8.
Okay. Main story, I'm going to go a 7. I just think the art's a bit too inconsistent to go any higher than that, even though I do like where the story's going. And backup, probably another 7. Like I think both parts are solid enough, but it doesn't reach the heights of other Action Comics issues in the run just because the art's less consistent and because just the feeling of messiness that gave me. But still though, excited for where we're ramping up now in the end of the run and seeing where it goes. So and the big glorious return that Clark's going to have to Earth in a few months' time, which they're now teasing heavily.
And the fact too that he that when they flip the radiation on the Genesis fragment, that it heals. So whatever he's sick with too.
Oh sure, yeah.
Right. That should he? I mean, even if he comes back with the white temples, which I think is a fine look for an older Superman. Just knowing that
I could see that being an unintended effect when they flip the engine on Warworld. Yeah, it'll heal whatever was wrong with him. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. All right. Yeah. Robin issue 16. Joshua Williamson writing, Roger Cruz on the art. So they've got Lord Deathman tied up because he came to the island.
He's such a maniac. I love Lord Deathman so much. He is a maniac in the best way.
He's just this weird cheesy asshole. I kind of love it. So Damien's talking to him and he's insisting that Flatline has went crazy and tried to kill him and that they have to go deal with her. He's yelling and raving. I did love that Damien and Connor Hawke just start talking about how much of an idiot he is, and he's like, "I can hear you, and Damien's just like, "I don't care."
Well, the fact that we meet them on the beach and you just see the screaming, and they're like, "Oh no, not again!" And they follow him all the way up to where they're keeping him, and he's chained up, and just the idea that his screams are penetrating this entire island, that made me laugh for whatever reason.
Yep, the Demon's Fist show up. They're taking sanctuary in the island as well.
Which that is his cousin, right? That we saw in that first Teen Titans story when Robin had his Titans. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're here, and Damien and Connor Hawke go off to Tokyo to try and find Flatline. So they're looking at possible safe houses that she might be in based on Lord Deathman's locations. They run into one of the Batmen from Batman Inc., although he seems to have left it because, Ghostmaker's shit.
Well,
was the just
even he knows. Yeah.
He's like,
he knows.
I didn't sign up for Ghostmaker Inc. That's not what I was in for. So they go looking. They get into a big fight with a big thing. It's a big trap, basically. And although this did lead to a really funny transition, there's a big 2-page layout where they're fighting this defense system, this big it's a big robot samurai looking thing, and Damien's like, "Hey, we solved that. I shut it down because I'm really smart." We defeated this whole thing without breaking a sweat, and then the very next page is that there's a trapdoor right underneath his feet that he drops through. So it's just Damien, being an arrogant little shit, and then immediately getting his comeuppance for it, which is always good fun.
Always good.
But yeah, so he runs out of Flatline, and immediately she kind of seems normal, although she's got like a new sort of cloak and hood, and she cracks some jokes about how she's taken after Talia. But yeah, so basically she seems completely fine. And then when the others come in, and like one of them calls her Damien's girlfriend, and she's like, "Have you been telling people that I'm your girlfriend?" And he's like, It may
I also like the idea
that way.
that Lord Deathman thinks that she lost her mind because she's cleaning up his messes. Like, she's streamlining his whatever he was up to.
Oh, sure.
Which I think is funny. That he's just, again, he's a maniac, and yeah. So
I mean, I'm down for any further developments on this potential Robin and Flatline relationship. So yeah, funny beats. But they realize, oh shit, he's probably playing us a little bit, and we've left him back there with everyone else. Which leads to the odd realization at the end of the issue, which is that Lord Deathman has got a romantic connection with Damien's grandmother.
Yeah, Mother Soul. Yeah, didn't expect that. And then upon research, right, Lord Deathman's original powers were he could enter a death-like state through like meditation, and whatnot. But that's been swapped since Rebirth to that he can't be killed because he's an immortal because of something to do with the Lazarus Pits. Had I known that before, it would have made this been less of a shock, but it's a shock nonetheless.
He says that this has all been his ruse. He's played it like a fiddle. I have to admit, I don't know if the reference to, because he says if I was streaming it, I'd have gotten so many subs. I don't know if like such a hip modern dialogue feels right coming out of a supervillain's mouth, but
yeah, definitely not. But again, he's a weirdo maniac. Like, maybe he's really into live streaming. He's got the Lord Deathman.
That's it. Channel. If someone gets a costume and does Twitch streams completely in character the entire time as Lord Deathman, just saying evil shit, I might be into it.
Also, the idea that they realize that he has a penchant for like crazy layers, and that Lazarus Island has a giant skull on it, so of course he'd want to make that his lair. That also made me laugh. But it's just that, I mean, despite having a character named Lord Deathman, this was a surprisingly light and funny issue.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Which is what I liked in the Robin book. This, again, despite it being about a death tournament and all of this, and that Damien is always such a self-serious character, that Williamson's getting humor out of all of this, and it bums me out that we're nearing the end.
Yeah, I really hope that we get some follow-up to some of these characters after this in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, because even Connor Hawk and this whole little group that's on Lazarus Island, it actually feels like an organic, Damien's never really had his Teen Titans, and this kind of feels like his group of people, Connor Hawk and Flatline. And
I mean, I know what you mean, but you did just say 5 minutes ago, you referenced Damien's Teen Titans at the start of Rebirth.
Yeah, but like, that really fell apart. Like, that was kind of the part of that story was he was still hiding stuff.
But it doesn't change the fact that the statement he's never really had his Teen Titans, when you used that exact phrase yourself 5 minutes ago. Right,
but I still would argue that they weren't his Teen Titans. They were a team of Teen Titans. But you know how Dick has the his group, and then Tim has his Young Justice group. Damien really doesn't. And so now with all these characters, like even Double XL and Black Swan, and it's coming together more so than the ones that showed up in the Titans Academy, like which is a bummer because I'd like to see Emmy pop up again. I like that character a lot.
Yeah. I hope we get more of them somehow. As long as they're consistently written anyway. But I did have fun with Damien being with Flatline again, and I'm excited to see whatever wacky stuff they've got going with Lord Deathman and Mother Soul. So we'll see how that goes. What are you giving Robin issue 16?
An 8.
I'm going to go with a 7. I liked it, but it does kind of feel like a in between issue. You know, it does
Definitely.
very much feel like just here's setting up some things. There's some fun laughs to be had along the way. There's some good character moments, but it didn't exactly take my breath away the way that some issues have, because they're these big dramatic beats or good emotional beats. So just a solid 7 for me out of 10. And Cruz's art's been consistent.
Yeah, and it fits in with the whole vibe that was set up. I'm drawing a blank on the artist that kicked it off.
Yeah,
who feels very similar.
Who was better, to be fair. Like like I do kind of wish we still had the original artist, but Cruz has been a fine follow up. So that is cool. All right, let's move on. The Swamp Thing issue 15. Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on the art, and this is the penultimate issue. We're almost done. Swamp Thing's dealing with the Parliament of Gears, fighting their creations, their robots. But during all this, Trinity's shown up to the party here right at the start of the issue, and when Swamp Thing and Trinity touch, and they kind of like, or she, at the very least, she sees his past. She sees his life and like the important beats in his life, which is his dying father, his time with his brother. But the whole idea of ideas meeting. So this is the Green and whatever she is coming together.
So did you read that as when they're explaining that he sees Trinity as a representation of the apocalypse? Like, she is the ending, right? And so when you think about where she was created through the atomic testing, and all that means is like she is the, not temptation, she's the whole idea of the end. And it was just this whole super heady thing that I might have thought way too much about. And not that it got in the way of reading this, but just trying to figure out how Trinity plays into all of this.
Well, I mean, the book progresses from there. Swamp Thing's fighting the various creations to try and end the conflict, and he comes across his brother, and his brother's losing the fight. Like, the Green is losing this fight in this war, and obviously Levi's powered by Green Lantern energy right now, and there's this idea that he's using willpower, like human willpower, instead of the Green to like force, or to propel everything. And he decides that he doesn't want to let his brother die. He doesn't want to be someone who leaves his brother behind. So he goes in and helps him, and he asks for his help. He asks Jacob to give him like access to the Green, to go, so he can go talk to the Parliament of Gears, so that he can present them with a choice, so that it's not just this war. Let's try and end this in some other way. That it's not just this big fight. And so sure enough, he kind of connects with them, and like all the vines and branches go into his chest, and all these great images that Mike Perkins is doing. So he fights his way into this, into the Parliament of Gears, and we finally get to hear them kind of talk, right? So we get all these just machines on a wall just saying things behind them.
Yeah, with creepy looking faces too. Like, they just like not that the Parliament of Trees wasn't like, I mean, it was creepy because they're tree faces, but like these guys are a whole new level. They're very reminiscent of Gremlins to me, and maybe that was on purpose because the whole idea of Gremlins and the machinery or whatnot. But yeah,
I don't know if I got Gremlins from it, but I mean, obviously Pale Wanderer walks out and starts having a debate with Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing says, "No, you're not an idea. You represent greed more than anything else. You weren't in the desert. You're this sort of this
he's hunger,
this parasite, this thing that just feeds off of others." But yeah, he wants the Parliament of Gears to listen, and sort of and we get this great 2-page layout of like showing that this war and these alien plant life beings coming down, like this is what's going to happen if this war keeps going. Like, maybe you'll win, but is it worth the cost of what it'll take to win? Is kind of the argument. And the Pale Wanderer's like, well, what, you're going to try and convince them by just telling them all this? And the end of the issue, he's like, no, they're not going to speak to me. It's not going to be me who convinces them of anything. It's going to be her. And the final page is like Trinity walking in, and it's like, oh, so like the Parliament of Gears is going to talk to this new idea. Whatever Swamp Thing felt when he touched her, like she's going to try and or convince them, and
Right.
you know it gets into like some of these things because she makes the choice like right before they do touch and like share the ideas. She steps in and helps him, and it's this idea that she just did that out of kindness, and that's inspired by the one man who was kind to her when he found her.
Put the coat over her, even though it was his demise, right? It's this kind of idea that when you create, you also have to destroy. They go hand in hand. And that she was created through destruction, right?
And maybe for her as well, like doing something kind ultimately.
Right.
Like by ending a war, she's almost destroying the need for herself because if she represents the destruction and the atomic bomb and mass devastation, the kindest thing she could do is convince everyone not to need her effectively, so maybe that's kind of something they're
and that's where I was
here.
getting the whole idea of finality, right? Is that she's this, if you don't, her ending is not her ending. So the word I'm looking for. This tripped me up, not in a bad way, but I've been definitely thinking about this issue since I read it last night. Just trying to piece this whole idea of the ideas and what they represent and how they're working with one another. And when Levi says that what his dad wanted to show him wasn't, Kazaringa or their home. It was that that Levi has to live for himself. And it's not like a selfishness, but you're a part of the bigger picture. And that if you lose that, you kind of lose touch with the rest of the world. And so in doing so and bringing in, he penetrates the gears, right? He gets the green to wrap themselves around this machinery. And, so they're kind of in a stalemate right now. It's kind of giving them like a timeout in their little war. And it's kind of that lesson from his dad. At least that's how I read it, was that, he needs to focus on this moment right now in himself. And that's when Trinity comes in, right? But yeah, no, man, Ram V's really good at this.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about how the Parliament of Trees and the green sometimes is a bit too focused on preserving itself when, no, it will always persist in some way. Even if this planet eventually dies, there'll be another planet that will have green and it'll persist in other ways. Ideas never really truly die, and the green won't die. So, it can't just be about beating the machines because we have to win. It has to be possibly coexistence. It has to be possibly how do we benefit each other? Because before we brought in the Parliament of Gears and we brought in industry and we brought in whatever else, we've talked before with Swamp Thing about how the green, the red, and the raw all do need to coexist. They all need to,
there needs to be a balance between them, right?
Yeah.
When they're working, it's a cycle,
So, basically, I guess if anything, Trinity's this representation because an explosion, and especially a big explosion, but like an explosion is a chemical reaction of things colliding effectively, right? So if the idea is that she represents the warning of these things clashing and like fighting until there is like some figurative explosion, it's I don't know, maybe that is the warning sign. Maybe there's more here in the last issue we're going to get that I can't quite predict yet. But
it also brings me back to that one-off issue where he goes into the bomb that didn't explode. That was an atomic bomb too. And how this ties to that, and but yeah, it's the whole idea of them being ideas and ideas persist even if they don't. The ideas will continue, and then seeing all this, and it wasn't just because of the Green Lantern. It's I've been wanting a new vision for Green Lantern for a minute, and I feel like Ram V, this whole idea of ideas, because just seeing the idea of the green existing on an alien planet, right? I want to see that now. Like, what is that like? So him doing a book like that, I think would be super, super cool. And that's just from a little thread in a Swamp Thing book. But yeah, no, it's again really good. Mike Perkins art too. A lot of these layouts when you seeing him get into the Parliament and you can just kind of follow the roots.
Yeah, because he kind of puts a root through and then he kind of reforms from the root on the other side. That's kind of how he gets in. And it's worth mentioning as well is that towards the end when he does put all of his vines around all of the machines and the gears of this impossible machine, part of the reason why he does that is because if you're going to take us to this like conclusion where we're all going to die because you have to fight this war, you're going to like do it having the memory. Like he's sharing the memory of the planet with them and saying, this is what you're part of, this is what you're going to destroy, all of this history if you go through with this. So the idea that the avatar that is created from the nuclear bomb is going to be used as a warning sign is very poetic, and the idea that she herself wants to be a warning sign potentially and do something kind, right? Again, is very poetic, and so I'm really excited to see how he wraps it up. It's very thought provoking, this run. I think especially this last 5 or 6 issues have all been. Yeah, I'm so glad it did well that we got these 5 or 6 issues because it's really put the rest of the series, those first 10, in perspective a lot better. Yeah, well, like you say, that one-off issue about the bomb that didn't explode, like. That all of a sudden feels a lot more relevant in hindsight because it set up some themes. Yeah. That maybe we didn't see coming, so that's good. But yeah. All right, rate the book. 9.5. I'm gonna go straight 9. We'll go straight 9. Yeah. But only because it doesn't quite hit the heights of some of the previous 2 or 3 issues. That's the only reason. The fact that I woke up thinking about this issue. Yeah. And all of this stuff. It's very much, the ideas are permeating into me now. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what Ram V's going for here. Yeah, and obviously the art's, it's consistent with Perkins. It's just been gorgeous. That final page, especially with Trinity showing up and just the light emanating from her. She feels like something genuinely new in the room. Like you've got Swamp Thing on the left, you've got the Pale Wanderer on the right, you've got all the gears behind her, but all the light coming from her feels genuinely different and new. Yeah. So, really well done stuff. All right. Task Force Z, issue 10, Matthew Rosenberg writing with Eddy Barrows on the art. I don't even know what's going on in this book anymore. Yeah, so in the last issue we had the revelation that Bane might not be Bane all the way. Oh yeah, and by the end of this issue we find out who it is because it's not Bane. So this is not revealing that Bane wasn't Bane before he died. That was still all Bane. But this is just somewhere after Bane died, he has been switched. So the actual corpse running around with the Bane costume on has not been Bane. It is in fact Gotham. Right, as in Gotham Girl in Gotham, the brother who's been dead. And so it flashes back to when this whole Task Force Z idea is going around with Two-Face and Waller, and that they want to use like basically the idea of Bane, but they don't want to use Bane himself, right? Was that the vibe you were getting? Yeah, part of it also is because they wanted to they wanted to control him better. Yeah. They also like had the Thinker plant like subliminal like messages in a lot of their heads, because at one point Bloom in this issue shows up and like says like a little like poem, and it triggers everyone to like turn on Jason for a bit. Except for Grundy. He says Grundy's still Grundy. And that made me laugh for whatever reason. I love Solomon Grundy. Yeah, and the whole thing is just that Bloom's there to kidnap one of the twin scientist ladies to help them with what they're working on. Yeah, to further whatever he's doing. Yeah, I'm going to be honest though. I've kind of lost track of what the motivations are of Bloom and who he's working for. Bloom, for me, Bloom's doing his own thing, and the fact that he brought back Kirk from a severed head, right? We still don't really know how he did that. That's still been, keeping to him. We still don't know what Bloom actually is, right? At this point, like, and just the longer this book goes, the more chaotic it gets. But I also kind of like that it's just telling the story of when you start getting involved in these, resurrections and how messy all this is. Like, it wasn't just, putting an undead team of villains together like we thought at the beginning, right? It's become much more of, there's ethical questions, and, when you had Two-Face into this, and, what his role in all of this was, and how he dealt with Waller, and just the whole idea of them wanting to use the idea of Bane, but that was mainly to control Jason, and why, right? Like, why is Jason so important to this?
is one of the questions that's still out there. But yeah, it's kind of messy, but I feel messy in a good way because I still feel the intent here with Rosenberg, with Bloom, and
I mean, like, I had a decent time reading it.
Powers.
I'm still kind of into the absurdity of it.
Yep.
But I will say that, you know, as time goes on, like, I'm losing track of like what each like group is trying to achieve and like what the point of certain things are. But then you get to that final page, and because there's a whole thing about, okay, we've got some random corpse to be this like fake Bane, but it's like, yeah, but how many people could be as big as Bane and could like deal with like the injection of the venom and stuff like that? So at the end, when it's revealed to be Gotham, it's like, okay, I guess he could take that, right? Because he's Gotham, he has powers, and shit.
Right. So, but yeah, no, it's fun, but it's a mess, and yeah, I'm curious to see where it all ends up. Was this 10?
That's position 10, yeah.
Yeah, so we have 2 left. You can still stick to landing once all is revealed. And Bloom's so creepy. Him doing that poem, and all of them flipping. That was, you know, sufficiently creepy, I think.
Yeah, you also had like in the flashback where they were setting some of this stuff up with Waller there, like Waller like being oddly protective of her her Suicide Squad members by like, because one of them like threatens them. I think it's Bloom threatens one of them, and she's like, "Don't you threaten one of my people?" And she's like, "But they're maniacs." Yeah, but they're my maniacs.
It's very much a Waller line, right? Like, yeah.
So,
but,
yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add about it.
I just thought, like, okay, where's Bane then? Because there's this whole plot through Joker, I remember you covering, of cloning Bane, right? And you have the Vengeance character, and then they killed off Bane at the beginning of Joker War, with the Arkham gas leak.
Oh yeah, so that was before Joker though. Yeah, because Joker spun out of that afterwards.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. So you have him dying, right? Seemingly in the A-Day stuff, and then they're cloning him, Joker, and now here, you know, is Bane still out there somewhere? Is he gonna make a stir? You know,
well, because they've got his corpse in this. Like he's on the table because they're transferring his memory to Gotham. They say that this tech is transferring the memories to the dead guy.
Ah, shit. Shows you. This is the first thing I read this week. I forgot that scene. I got so caught up in it being Gotham. Well, damn it! Just bring back Bane, please. I like Bane. That's all I was getting to.
I'm in no rush. We got plenty of villains to use.
No, I know, but you know, he's just what I like. That's all.
What are you giving Task Force Z?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just about give it a 7 as well. Obviously, Barrows' art's still fun. It's got that moodiness to it. You know, it's just the book is a bit messy, perhaps for its own good at times, but generally the brand of crazy that's in it is entertaining. So 7 out of 10 for me. So DC Mech issue 1. Kenny Porter writing with Baldemar Rivas on the art. So very curious to see what this was going to be exactly beyond just there's mech suits in it, because that's obviously what the premise is. I was very surprised when it started off. This is a new 6-issue miniseries, just for the record. So that starts off, and it's like, oh, it's 1945, and it starts off with a JSA story, right? So you got the JSA, and they're being celebrated in the streets, and this hot girl that's narrating, talking about how it's the age of heroes, all these things. But then the first ever parademon shows up in the sky, and it doesn't look like a parademon that you've seen like before. This is kind of, it's not quite a mech, but it's got like mech parts on it, and it's very different. But it kills like 3 of the JSA members. The rest of them just about take it down, but it's like, oh, holy shit, this like took all of our effort. In fact, I think Hot Girl's like killing blow is a strike from the upper atmosphere with the nth metal mace. So she comes all the way down from the sky to kill it. And it's like, wait, this is just a scout. There's going to be more of these someday. We can't even begin to like imagine fighting these. So the 5 remaining members of the JSA like become scientists. Heroes are kind of gone for that. You know, then decades later, we get the new version of Superman's origin in this universe. which is not that Krypton's going to explode, it's that Darkseid's there with a big apocalypse machine thing, and it's going to consume the planet. So they launch, Kal-El off, just like normal, but instead of the planet exploding, it's during this. And it's like, no, we have to send him to Earth because it will be in a few decades' time. Darkseid's going to get to Earth, wanting to kill people to do his anti-life equation bullshit. So we have to send them off. But the one thing that is different, other than that, though, is that as they're flying, as the ship's flying off, to give it cover, both of Superman's parents get into their own mech suits and go and take on like some of Darkseid's ships and drones and shit. But yeah, there you go. Although the hologram that starts talking to Kal-El, baby Kal-El, starts happening on the trip. Like it's talking to him when he's in the spaceship. So I don't know if that'll lead to more differences later, but that's one of the key things that's set up. But we cut to today when we're in Metropolis, and the mech versions of the Rogues are stealing something. We get Mech Captain Cold, Mech Boomerang, Mech Heatwave, Mech so and so. I think you see Trickster and Weather Wizard in a couple of pages' time. So Mech Flash comes in, and it's worth mentioning that inside these mech suits, they are themselves and they look like themselves. Although they might not have, if they have superpowers typically, I don't know if Flash has actual speed powers or if it's just that the mech that he's built, his mech suit's got like this speed ability. So I'm unclear exactly as to that. But it's Wally, we find out. This is Wally who's taken over from Barry. And then Batman comes down in his mech suit to help fight the Rogues. The designs are a little bit funky, but this mechs, so it's whatever. Darkseid's on his way. He says it's time to go after Earth. Their big boom tube that they were going to create isn't going through because some of the humans have put a stop to it. So they're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. So they send down 3 parademons, which Flash and Batman and their mechs are going to have to deal with. Meanwhile, we see Lex Luthor talking to General Lane. So Lex is in this universe. We're going to see what he's doing. He claims that they've been ready for this attack for 20 years, so I'm sure Lex has got his own mech suits and whatnot. In fact, if anything, he's the one character who kind of already has a mech suit in the DC universe, so I guess that would make some sense.
I like the idea that it's a Lex Max.
So the big thing, though, that happens is that while Batman and Flash are fighting the parademons, the big saving grace is that seemingly for the first time, they've not met Superman before. Superman and his mech suit come down, and it crushes one of the parademons, and immediately Flash is like, who the hell's that guy? So they're very confused. But of course, the end of this first issue is that Batman jumps out of his mech suit and holds a batarang to Superman's throat because he doesn't trust him. Because naturally, Also, Batman keeps referring to Allred and his godmother. Now, I don't know if he's just talking about Leslie Tompkins or if this is something that the book's going to do specifically that's different. Yeah. Because he says that, I was like, he keeps referring to godmother, and I'm like, okay, this feels like a big thing that it's building up to. So I don't know. Honestly, it was a very easy read. It wasn't too wordy. It flowed quite well. The art's enjoyable enough. There's a lot of speed lines and stuff to give the sense of motion. There is a little bit of weirdness early on because we start off with a GSA story. You're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I thought it was going to set up sort of a Pacific Rim thing where the GSA were going to start building mechs because of whatever happens in the story. But then it skips ahead and it kind of feels like, oh, the Justice League are already in mech suits, and like, and when it did the redo of like the Krypton's like end stuff, right, and we see like Jor-El and Lara in mech suits, I thought, oh, maybe Superman's going to be the one who brings mech suits to Earth. Like, he's going to be the one that says, no, like, my parents had this technology. We can build all every mech suits for everyone.
He inspires the mech suits,
But they've already got mech suits before he shows up to everyone.
It's just a world where mech suits are just part of who we are.
Yeah, it's just a normal thing. Everyone's got mech suits apparently. So I had a little bit of like what we're doing here early on. But it's in a weird way. Like, some of it feels not different enough, but at the same time, it was a very easy read. So like, I'm not even sure how excited. Like, it's not as exciting as Jurassic League issue 1 was, but at the same time, like, it wasn't this like wet fart of an issue that you know, it still had some style and you know.
It sounds fun. Like, it sounds like, at least if you don't, you know, if you don't take the it's just an excuse to put the Justice League in mech suits, you know, if you don't take the cynical part and just enjoy it, it seems enjoyable enough.
Yeah.
Like, I do like the idea of Darkseid on Krypton, because that has the, you know, there's other Kryptonians out there still, right? Like, if he turns that into one of his engines and whatnot, like he does, you know, maybe that's where it's building to. I don't know.
Yeah, he basically consumes the planet with his big apocalypse world. It's not War World, but the apocalypse world.
No, yeah, it's that's why I said one of the engines, because I just remember that wasn't that part of, it was one of the Justice League stories where he was trying to turn a city into one of, maybe that was in Darkseid War. I can't remember. But yeah.
So it was a decent enough read. Like, it's you know, depending on, you know, how busy things are when issue 2 comes out, I might very well read issue 2. It's kind of weird though. I do think it's a bit strange that this is starting whilst Jurassic League's still going on, when it's very much kind of like
in the same space.
Yeah, it's like, you know, here's the Justice League, but there's this big difference to them. Like, it feels like maybe let Jurassic League finish, wait a couple months, and then start this. But that aside, it's a decent enough time. So if you want,
sounds good.
You know, it's not like a must read by any means, but you know, it's very functional. So I'll probably give it I'm getting a lot of 7s this week, but I thought, you know, it's good. That's kind of 7-y. So swimming in 7s this week. So there you go. So next up, Batman One Dark Knight issue 3, Jock, doing all the key roles basically.
Yeah.
So obviously this is the last issue ended with Batman and EMP down the sewer. It was dark, you couldn't see anything. They're getting close to Blackgate. Obviously the whole premise of this book has been powers out in the city. He's trying to get EMP to Blackgate. All these gangs are after him. This really corrupt politician slash whatever her, I can't remember her exact job role, but the corrupt woman who's like really shady and like corrupt, and in this issue she flat out like kills a cop who's not one of her corrupt cops, because like, oh, no loose ends, we can't leave him alive, he's seen too much.
Oh dear.
So yeah, it really sets up that she's like an evil bitch. But yeah, the issue starts and it's just all these dark panels of like just like some scratches and stuff, and it's like Batman's in the sewers, there's no light, he can't see anything, and then eventually when he does, EMP's sort of tied up as like a sort of bit of bait, and then all these like really kind of weak looking guys come out and try to fight him, and it turns out they are actually people who worship Killer Croc, and Killer Croc comes out of the tunnels and he's drilling, so we get this big Batman and Killer Croc fight. It's a whole lot of fun. Meantime, yeah, you've got Vasquez, the corrupt woman, kind of like coming across with EMP's son, trying to get to him. She's got this game plan to use his son to like kill him, which is our ultimate goal here. But yeah, the fight's really good. Obviously, this is again 50 pages, and it goes in quite quick for 50 pages. The art from Jock is gorgeous. Like I said, those first 2 or 3 pages are just panels of effectively darkness with the odd like sort of blue scratch to kind of give a sense that there's like something there, but you can't quite tell what it is. And even that looks good. Like even that, I'm kind of just like engaged in what's going on. So yeah, you've got all these corrupt cops teaming up with some of the gangs on their way to like towards Blackgate, because that's where Batman and that are. All this stuff's going on. Batman gets so beat up by Croc that part of his curl's like ripped off and his hair's sticking out, and he ends up like tying like part of his curl like at the back to keep it on. So he's like really messed up by the time we get quite far in the book. And he uses Croc's own strength against him to flip him into a wall, which wins the fight. And then he some of the power comes back on the Batcave. Alfred starts seeing things again. The Blackout's now just located around like where EMP is, so it's just that kind of area near Blackgate. And they get out of the bridge, or sorry, out of the sewer and the manhole, and they're at like the edge of the bridge that leads to Blackgate, which is on like a little island. And Batman's like, oh, we're almost there, and this part is like, it feels like the end of a big epic action movie, because he looks down. It's this gorgeous panel of looking towards Blackgate with this empty road on its way there. He looks back over his shoulder on the next page, and you just see the skyline of darkness, and you can just make out that there's people on the roof, and sure enough, there's like a row of guys with rocket launchers. So the next page is just all these rockets flying towards Batman and EMP, which takes out part of the bridge. There's a lot of fighting going on. There's jumping in the water, but the big thing is that Vasquez shows up with the kid, and is like, "This is your father who abandoned you. Like, go and like let out your rage. Let your EMP explosion fly to put an end to him." But what she doesn't predict is that the kid and EMP actually embrace and hug, and he's happy to see him, and she's pissed off about it, but funny enough, EMP's actually just too far gone. He was going to blow anyway, and he's like ramping up, and Batman has to dive and like put him in the water to basically stop the explosion from like killing anyone. And he tells Brody, "I'm going to try and take care of him," and he's kind of lying because he knows he's probably going to die. And it's this gorgeous white page as well as he's hugging the kid, saying, "I've got you, son. It's all going to be okay." But he dives off the roof, or sorry, off the bridge. Gorgeous paneling here, where you get this like page where he's kind of like throwing EMP into the water, but Batman's still dangling from the edge of the bridge, the destroyed bridge, and he's sort of dangling in silhouette. But then the sort of the background panel that sort of fills out underneath it is just the actual the bright light of the EMP explosion coming from the water. It's just really stunning stuff. And then Vasquez says, like, it doesn't matter what you know. No one's going to believe the word of of Gordon's like vigilante friend and this like criminal child over me. So like, I wanted him dead. I got him dead. This is not the way I expected it to happen, but it worked out. And turns out Batman's recording the conversation, and Gordon's like, "Yeah, got it." So she's caught, and there's this great full page spread of her looking back across the bridge, and there's just all of these police waiting for her. So getting some comeuppance, which is really nice. And that's kind of the end of the book. I mean, the main thing is the idea that this kid Brody, the EMP's son, needed help, and EMP maybe survived the blast. He's getting lifted out of the water, and the kid, the idea that he's got this stepfather or like adoptive father who's looking out for him, and his real father cares about him. So maybe there's hope for him. Because he's got a support system, he'll be able to control this ability he's inherited. So it's a really kind of sweet ending. It does. I said from issue 1 that this very much felt like an action movie where it was just a simple premise, this gauntlet to get to the finish line. And I think this is going to read fantastically when you read it as one 150 page continuous story, because it's just going to be this adrenaline thing. It's got a big climactic payoff. It feels very cinematic, and the villain is very hateable, and you're really glad when she gets to come up and at the end. So yeah, that was excellent. I was into it yet again. Yeah, and it felt distinct as well because half of it was in the sewers, and you dealt with all the horror side of that before it came back up top. So yeah,
let me get a good showing by Croc, so I'm gonna have to go back and read this when I have time.
Yeah, scary Croc as well, which is nice.
Always a bonus.
Yeah. So yeah, and obviously the art, I mentioned it a few times already, but I can't really compliment it enough. It's gorgeous, it's stunning. Jock. Yeah, it like, what else can I really say about it? There's just the way it handles these epic moments in darkness or silhouette, or where an explosion goes off. It really, like, you feel like light's really important in Jock's art, where it'll all be in shadows, but then you'll get that one panel or page where there's like just bathed in light, and it really feels different, and you feel the impact of it. There's a lot of that throughout it. So yeah, this is just a straight 9 for me. I just think it was a really fun Black Label book. And I think it'll probably read even better if you just read it in one sitting, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so long that would be difficult. I think 150 pages, like, it's obviously longer than a few single issues, but it's I think you could read this in one sitting over about an hour and just have a great time with it. So yeah, that's One Dark Knight issue 3, which will take us on to Superman Space Age issue 1. Mark Russell writing, Michael Allred on the art. You read this, Matt? So
yes, I did. So this is essentially a not even a what if. It's a uh, almost a companion to the New Frontier, in that this is about the DC heroes if they started to come up in the actual 60s. And so it starts in 1985, and it looks like Earth's on its last legs, and Superman, goes up to space, gets the full view. It looks like there's, so, like a field around Earth, and he jumps. He goes down to the fortress of Solitude, and stuff's raining down on him. So it definitely looks like the end. Um, and as he's in there, Lois and John are there, and he's talking about what it means to be a hero, and that sometimes the when a sailor's lost out at sea, and he could just stick his head up enough to shout he was here. Um, to do that before plunging into the darkness is an act of heroism. And so as it looks like it's the end.
It's interesting that we're at a point now where John is being placed in stories that are meant to feel Silver Agey and things like that, where
and it fits.
Yeah,
right?
It's just interesting because typically when they set stories in that kind of time period, and they tend to do it as if, okay, it's like the Silver Age where all of these extra characters didn't exist yet. But so it's interesting to see them kind of throw that in there.
Yeah, so he's a little kid in this. He's probably no more than 7 or 8, and he's scared. And so Clark grabs him, and they sit with Lois, and the fortress is coming down because it looks like they've made their home there. And then it jumps back to 1963, and Clark's living in Smallville with his dad, and he's doing farm work, and he's like, I could have had this all done in like 10 minutes. And Pa Kent's kind of like, it's not the work, it's doing the work, right? It's like, yeah, you can do it, you can do it all quick, but you're not going to learn the value of work without doing it. And then says, do you want to do it quick or do you want it done right? And as they're sitting on the porch drinking a root beer, Pa Kent tells a story of how he was in World War II in the Pacific, and that he kind of saw the worst of what humanity had to offer, and that because Clark had told him he could do more, he could save the world, and that's where Pa brings up again, are you gonna save it right or save it quick? And then that's what brings up the story of in the war, and that they're in these little islands, and no one in Japan knows that the war's over. They'd been bombing them for weeks. They're half starved, half shell shocked, and some of the Japanese soldiers are surrendering, but they're also taking out as many lives as they can upon surrender, which then makes the U.S. soldiers super jumpy because they're seeing their people get taken out, and so as they start going through these caves, they start looking for fire because the Japanese soldiers are smoking before they die. And that's where they learn that if they're soldiers or civilians and how to handle it differently. So Pa Kent's there, and he sees a fire go up in this cave, and he fires, and he ends up killing a kid. And it's Pa learning the cost of war, and that the kid was he had a lighter to try to light his way to hide in the cave because the U.S. soldiers were coming. And he says that you see the cost of life, and it sticks with you forever, and he talks about how he shipped out soon after that. And so he talks about that, right after that, Pa comes back and tries to get settled, and that's where Clark finds his way to them, to him and Ma. And they just talk about how, in that, when he landed, there was also another piece that they kept going, and we know that's going to end up being what becomes of the Fortress of Solitude. And that it tells Clark to look at it, but as they're sitting on the porch, they get news from Dallas that JFK's been assassinated, which now inspires Clark to, he wants to go do more. We get a meeting in Washington between Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor. They introduce themselves as representatives for their each of their companies, and they're going into a boardroom to meet with General Lane. And they're told that Kennedy was assassinated as well. Over the Arctic Ocean, there's jets flying, and they see Clark flying up, towards the Arctic, and the pilot doesn't know what to make of this. And we get cut to the stuff that's going on with Kennedy, with them swearing in LBJ, and so it's cool that Russell's pulling from history. But yeah, so Clark is trying to do more. Mom and Dad don't want him to go, and then we cut to the Soviets also see Clark as he's flying over the ocean. So the American pilots think that it's something to do with the Soviets. The Soviets think that it's him. And they get prepared to launch before this pilot fires at Clark and knocks him basically into the snow. And so now that thing's been destroyed, they stand down. So we get a near miss. So it's really Mark Russell playing with the whole idea of the tension in the 60s. And Lex is in a boardroom. They're making pitches on how to deal with the Cold War. And so Bruce makes a pitch that basically you can use armor and soldiers that are super well trained with, essentially he's describing an army of Batmen to go and fight in these proxy wars to keep tensions at ease. Because if you have a proxy war, they're not going to fight a bigger Cold War. They're not going to want to drop bombs. But then Lex counters with well, why don't we put all this money into bunkers? Because the war is going to be fought anyways. Why not, plan for the end? And come to find out when it gets to the Pentagon, Lex has a guy on the inside that he's blackmailing. One of the generals has gambling debts that Lex has found out about, and that if he can get Lex's idea to pass, he'll pay for all his debts. Perry starts sending Lois out. She's running the Kooks and Crazies beat, and so she's out there just talking to people that had witnessed the Kennedy assassination, and she's writing stuff up. Clark finds the fortress. He finds recordings of Jor-El. Jor-El starts trying to help him be Superman, and tells him if you found this fortress, your powers are going to be, I need you to go experience the world. But he's telling Clark about stuff that he doesn't know that he can do. And this is really where the art takes up, that it's that Mike Allred, very pulp style of the 60s, kind of like how, Darwin Cooks looked in the New Frontier. Just the very clean lines, but Allred here uses the expressions of Clark because he's totally confused about having heat vision or X-ray vision. He's finding about all the stuff because, as far as Clark's concerned, he's fast and he's strong and he can fly. And he's gonna, have to unlock all of these before he can claim his birthright and basically be this emissary for other worlds, and kind of a symbol of a world that didn't listen and consumed itself. Lois writes a Pulitzer Prize winning piece about the death of JFK, and then Clark moves from Smallville in 1964 to Metropolis and ends up working the same beat because Lois gets a promotion. A lot of fun 60s stuff. But on one of Clark's outings on the Kooks and Crazies beat, he meets with Pariah, which I feel is weird considering everything that's going on with the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that he meets Clark in Bibbo's bar, which of course I love. And he tells him that, he's from a world where he saw the destruction of everything, and tells him how he unleashed the Anti-Monitor, and that, the Earth has 20 years. And 20 years from now, he's like, you can try to do, but it's going to end. I've seen it. Which, again, I think is funny because we're talking about Crisis and Russell's playing with a timeline, but we're getting Allred drawing these panels from Crisis, which I think is really cool in that style of the 60s. So, Anti-Monitor really looks monstrous and through all this. But Clark's like, well, we can change these things. And Pariah's like, you can do your best to try, but nothing's gonna, it's all set into stone.
It's funny how you can technically put Pariah in any Elseworld story and kind of say it's tying into the Crisis event a little bit, because, well, technically this is Pariah just traveling around the multiverse, and this is just one that's going to potentially die. So okay.
Right, exactly. And so Lex ends up, making his plan work. We also find out that pilot, so as Lex is getting his idea bought up by the general he's blackmailing, the pilot comes in, and it's Hal Jordan, the one that had shot at Superman the year before. He wants to know what, because they want to talk about this Soviet super weapon that he shot down that they didn't recognize. And yeah, my iPad's freezing, so I can't go through. But Lois and Clark are hitting it off. He's trying to, he tells her about Pariah, and she's like, well, yeah, no, that dude's weird, but you get a lot of that. And she talks about her dad's experience in World War II, where he fought in the Europe side of things. And there's a bridge outside of Belgium that both sides were fighting over. And there was massive casualties on both sides. But finally, the American side finds out that the Germans were holding an area behind the bridge, and they're able to take in the guys they were fighting at the bridge. When Sam Lane questions the other side's commander, he says, no, we were told that the American offensive was right on the other side, so they were just fighting over nothing, which again is another piece of this Cold War. Throughout the rest of the book, we see Lex and his machinations, and we see Batman starting to, since they didn't buy up Bruce Wayne's idea, he talks to Lucius and they take it off book, because even though they had paid for this research and development, he can still, Lucius, is like, well, yeah, in a time of people writing history, off books is a pretty good place to be. So we get the seeds for Superman, we got the seeds for Green Lantern, and now so Batman, Superman, and Green Lantern. Clark keeps going back and forth between the fortress, where he's talking to his dad and really forming his worldview in his interactions with everybody. Lois is taking, bigger, dodgier stories. She ends up going down to the South, where there's a lot of segregation stuff going on. It's the early 60s. And she meets with John Lewis and learns about, like, she asks him, as they're in jail together because she got caught up in the protest, about, like, do you think that people don't care enough about your struggle because they're distracted? And John Lewis brings up that, well, no, before we started doing the sit-ins, we went out and ate this Chinese dinner because we didn't know when we'd be able to eat again. So we ate as much as we could, and now we have this memory of unity before, and it's that distraction that was able to, distract us now. So it's very important. So again, it's Mark Russell using this history, that you need the comics, you need the movies, you need music and all this other stuff in these times where everything feels like the worst, because it's those distractions that'll help you keep pushing forward. Of course, Clark comes down to help Lois, and he ends up creating a distraction because they tell him, the police, that there's no Lois Lane there. There's no ladies in this jail. But he uses his X-ray vision and sees her there. So he busts her out with the rest of the Freedom Riders and John Lewis. It jumps forward another year on the Coast City Naval Base, where, Lex has built his bunkers, and he says that they're going to test it out. So he was able to get through that crooked general an atomic bomb, and it looks like he's in the South Pacific. They're going to drop the bomb. And right as they get ready to, a bomb drops on Coast City. So the bomb that Lex said he was dropping 1,000 miles away actually drops on Coast City, killing Sam Lane and everyone around there, because Lex is trying to kick off World War III between the Soviets, so that his bunker that he's built, he can shape society now, which everyone's looking at him like he's a maniac. Dr. Silas Stone is there. He tries to speak out against Lex. Lex gives him a severance. And yeah, we get Hal Jordan going over Coast City in his plane, ends up encountering Abin Sur. We see that. Alfred tells Bruce about Coast City's destruction. He goes down into the Batcave where now he has basically made the Batman gear. And Superman finally puts on the suit that, he feels he's ready for, as he's, lived in the world, and he's, learned to use his X-ray vision and heat vision and all of his powers. And they go to take in Lex. And so Batman ends up showing up there with Superman because Lex wants to drop the second bomb in Metropolis because the United States ends up not retaliating. So Lex like, well, we have to force their hand to make it look like a second and, a bigger deal. But Batman and Superman show up, which then, leads to the United States end up being hopeful because Superman had stopped all of this stuff from happening. He, but just his presence there. And it ends with Wonder Woman coming out at the United Nations and Bruce Wayne paying for a Hall of Justice and them uniting in the Hall of Justice. And that's the end of book 1. Very, very, very long book. Wasn't expecting all 80 pages to be as packed, even though I should have because it's Mark Russell. That's kind of what he does. But I definitely recommend reading it. I feel like it is going to act as a companion to the New Frontier in that it's playing with real world events to show not why superheroes are important, but, why these archetypes persist. And there's a part where Superman's rounding up the missiles that, the U.S. and the Soviet are launching each other. And that's why there's been no retaliation, because Superman's going through and stopping them. That's a part I kind of skipped over. And he hides them all up on the moon. But, he talks about that sometimes this era is called the space age. Other times it's called the nuclear age. He wanted to do his best to make it the space age, because he wanted to kind of be his own deterrent. And yeah, again, super well written. Mark Russell really knows how to do these type of, I guess, socially charged, not even socially charged, but these charged stories where they're playing with real life stuff. And then the Allred art just fits perfectly. Like these dark lines, each of the heroes looks, like that era. So like the Batman, his cape and his cowl and his suit look piecemeal. It doesn't look like a full solid whole piece because it's all based off of the soldier stuff. And when Green Lantern shows up, it looks like that era. So it teases for volume 2 whenever that comes out. We're gonna have Flash there. So yeah, it just feels like this is a Silver Age, smorgasbord and how that relates. And if this, what the end of the Earth in 85 means, is that the crisis, right? Is this the thing that ends this era, right? Is this a meta story in that way, or what?
It's a bit of both, I suppose, because it's meta in the sense that is kind of like, where we transition to this other era, but also in a non-meta way, if you take it literally, it's like, well, all these other universes got destroyed in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they made one true Earth, right? So technically, this Earth will die,
right?
And that's it.
Despite Superman's best efforts, where he's trying his best, but at the end of the day, he just has to know that he did enough. And that message right there, it really, really spoke to me, because that's a Supermanism, right? And enough that do what you can, but the important thing is that you did. Not necessarily the outcome. It's the effort that you put in. It's really good stuff. So I'm going to give it an 8.
All right, cool. But there you go. That is the final book of the week, which will take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff. We do our favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books of the week. So we'll start off with panel / moment. Matt, what do you have?
So there's a lot of them in the space age, but the one that really got me was in the action backup when the super family gets called in. And I like the way that page was set up, and each of the heroes showing up in their own panel, and then seeing Keenan show up, like, come on. So that's gonna be my moment.
Sure. I think for me, there's a good chance it's probably just the final page of Swamp Thing, I think.
It's really good too.
That said, there's a lot of good moments in One Dark Night, but I think I'll go with the end of Swamp Thing and Trinity showing up as kind of the game changer. All right, cover of the week, Matt. What do you have?
So there's a Robin variant. I'm trying to see who did it, but it's done in the 66 style.
All right. Okay.
And it's really cool. Yeah, it's the Dan Schoening Robin 66, and then when I looked up Lord Deathman, I found out that's the year he debuted. So there's a fun little tie-in where there's a 66, but yeah, it's got these bright colors. It's that pop art style from like the Batman 66 show. But yeah, it's a lot of flat lines there, Ravagers there. It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
Oh, cool. A couple to shout out. There's a Behermo variant of Detective, so you know what you get into with that.
Yep.
But it's very nice. There's like a swarm of bats making the bat logo in the sun because it's like the early morning. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give another shout out to the variant for Superman Space Age. I didn't read it, but you did. So
yeah. Which one?
It's the Nick Darrington cover, which is Superman in space, just kind of looking over his shoulder.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Yeah, that's good. But my victor for the week is the variant to One Dark Night, which is the Croc from behind going through the mist towards Batman. It's a very nice cover. It's Bill Sienkiewicz cover.
Sienkiewicz.
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
Sienkiewicz. But yeah.
Oh, that is that is phone wallpaper material.
Yeah, that's my cover of the week. Not surprising to anyone who's seen it probably, but very, very pretty. All right, what's your art of the week, Matt?
Mike Perkins Swamp Thing. Shouts to Allred for Space Age and Albuquerque for tech, but Perkins, I feel this is the best work, among it anyways.
Yeah, it probably would have been Perkins for me, but there's a Jock book out this week that is like chock-a-block.
Understandable.
So that's my pick. All right, what's your top 5 of the week, Matt?
All right, so number 1's gonna be Swamp Thing, 2 is Action Comics, 3 is Space Age, 4 is Tech, and 5 is Robin.
Yeah, I think my number 1 is Swamp Thing. Number 2 is One Dark Night. Number 3 is Detective, I think. Number 4, Action, and then number 5, Robin. Yeah,
there you go.
Take, yeah, maybe Robin above Action. I don't know, but something like that. So there you go. That is our picks of the week. I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics if I can find the tab. There it is. So coming up next week from DC, we have Batman 126. We have Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 3. That's right, they changed the title of the event after 2 issues to be weird. Yeah. We'll probably still just refer to it as Dark Crisis, to be honest, but...
Yeah, because, I mean, we call Crisis, right? Yeah. We never use the full title.
So, DC vs. Vampires issue 8. We got Flashpoint Beyond issue 4. Oh, I can't wait to see what we get into with that issue next week.
I'm hoping for just complete insanity.
Yeah. We got Batman Killing Time issue 6, so that's wrapping up next week. We got Poison Ivy issue 3, Harley Quinn issue 18. We have Batman White Knight Presents Red Hood issue 1. We got Batman Beyond Neo Year issue 5. Aquaman Andromeda issue 2. Oh, yes. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about this. This is the new Champion of Shazam issue 1, which is the Mary Marvel becoming the lead Shazam character miniseries. So I'm excited for that.
With Doc Shaner art.
Who's perfect
Jersey Campbell writing. So yeah.
Yeah. Sword of Azrael for all 6 Azrael fans is coming out. We have
Connor.
We got Multiversity Teen Justice issue 3. Sword of Azrael Dark Knight of the Soul issue 1.
So that is a one shot done by the same team of Sword of Azrael, which you would think. I don't know which one to read first. If I would read any, but yeah, I don't know.
I'll just not read any. That's fine with me.
There you
go. So then you also have Black Adam, Just Society Files, Cyclone issue 1, and then Mad Magazine 27's out as well. But yeah, so I'm excited for Aquaman Andromeda and Shazam, of course. Sort of high up on my list. And then, of course, Dark Crisis I've been enjoying. So yeah.
Well, we got the last issue of Killing Time, which after the penultimate issue in that reveal, I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I won't reveal who it is, but there was a reveal for who the villain was in the book, and it was kind of a cool moment.
Yep.
Just in case you skipped over the review because you're saving it for later or something.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where this goes. See if King sticks the landing, and we know the art will at least be top notch, being Mark Days. But yeah, and then I got Ivy as well, so which I'm excited for.
Yeah, so I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bordenau, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. You can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses. Specific to this show, you get the show when it's ready, sometime on a Saturday night on early access, rather than the usual time on the Sunday, if that's of interest. Of course, you can check out a bunch of things, though. You can go to DC Comics Podcast if you want to get our Twitter. Of course, we have a Discord. There'll be a link for that in the description. There's a subreddit, all these things. Go and spread the good word and rate the show highly on podcast apps. iTunes especially, it seems to be helpful if you rate them high on there.
Mm-hmm.
So go and do any and all of those things. All of it does help, and we appreciate it all. Cool stuff. But yeah, that is episode 316 of Comics from the Multiverse. Go on,
trying to think of some other Stone Cold isms. Yeah, I can't think of any.
I can see the smirk in your face. I you really want to say something, but hey, you got one last chance. Thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.